he says, let's see, the head of his name is Klaas Knot. And in October of 2022, he is the head governor of Dutch Central Bank. He said the balance sheet of the Dutch Central Bank is solid because, make this bigger so I can actually read it, is solid because we also have gold reserves, and the gold revaluation account is more than 20 billion euros, which we may not count as equity, but it is there. Now, it's interesting to understand that when we talk about the revaluation account, that, you know, why do they give it that name, I guess, first and foremost? Why would they give it the name of a revaluation account if it wasn't something that they noticed? And I think it's option number 4, right? And option number 1 for the Fed would be to inflate, the way all governments have done. And option number 2 would be to default. Option number 3 I focused on for the last 4 years, and that was incite the world to no longer trust the United States, to no longer have a need to use the dollar for oil, to sign an executive order to go green, to stabilize the country, weaponize the dollar in the treasury market, and have everyone dump dollars. There's something called Operation Sandman that people should Google. Over 100 plus countries in theory, and I don't know how true this is or not, but Mike Adams sure thinks it is, and he's a smart guy, that they've all agreed at one point to flip the switch. And it would happen at night is the way that it's written down, the night of the switch, they call it, where in unison, they will all dump US dollars in treasuries.
Andy Schectman presents a deeply unsettling scenario where over 100 nations, regardless of their alliances, could set off Operation Sandman, a coordinated sell-off of US assets intended to devastate the American economy. This isn't just speculative talk. It's grounded in the concerning fact that the US holds 261 million ounces of gold, still shockingly valued at just $42.22 per ounce on official balance sheets. The potential consequences of such an undervaluation, coupled with the global move to abandon US assets, could trigger an economic collapse that reshapes the world order. Imagine waking up to a world where the dollar plummets in value and treasury markets spiral into chaos, with no immediate remedy at hand. Schectman's warning highlights the very real possibility of this nightmare scenario becoming a reality if global powers decide to dump US dollars and treasuries in unison. This is more than a financial theory. It's a wake-up call that could impact every aspect of global finance.
On Monday, when everything collapsed, it's interesting that Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, CenturyLink, Interactive Brokers, and Robinhood were all down. And that's unacceptable. Unavailable is unacceptable in a market that's collapsing. And, you know, thank goodness for circuit breakers maybe when that happens. But I remember during COVID, I said to my nephew, I said, listen, man, just pull your money out, sit on the sideline, you know, for your 401k. He works for a big corporation in Minneapolis. I said, just take it out and sit on this. Let's let things simmer down a little bit. And he was with Fidelity, and he called, and he was on hold for 2 hours on a Thursday. They finally came back and said, listen, we're too busy. We have to set up an appointment. Someone will call you next Tuesday. So over the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and this was a 401k, you know, for a big, I think it was Fidelity. I'm almost positive. But it was a big group like that, Vanguard, Fidelity, whatever it was. But he couldn't get through. Waited 2 hours and then told it would have to be Tuesday. That's the point, you know. And when you think about these things, like Bill says, whatever you don't want to lose, or when people say, you know, it's not, if you don't own it, you don't hold it, you don't own it. I mean, those kind of things are trite and whatever, but if you think about how that could play out in reality, there's a lot of truth in that. And saying that gold is an asset that has no counterparty liability if it's in your own possession, there's truth in that. So it doesn't mean it has to be taken to the nth degree. Maybe it does. But I will, as far as Bill goes, he means that. And he means that sincerely. And I'm not the poster child for Finance 101 either. You know, I have more gold and silver than anyone would say I should own. But to me, it's not an investment. That's where the delineation is for me, is that it is not an investment. It's wealth. My investments would be my mining shares and the little bit of money I have in U.S. Treasuries. Those are my investments. My gold and silver, which I have way more than people would ever think you should, to me, is wealth. And it's money in the bank without the risk that we just talked about. On every balance sheet across the globe, the gold in central bank balance sheets is held in what's called a revaluation account. And it's weird, the way that they have the rules set up, I'm not sure really why they do it this way, but they have the gold in their balance sheet on the asset side and the revaluation account, which mirrors it on the liability side. The rule is you can't offset a liability with your gold, and for whatever reason, it's still valued at 35 bucks an ounce across all of Europe, as an example. The Bretton Woods number. Now, I'm not sure. I used to know. I mean, it's been so long that why they moved the U.S. price up to 42.22. I don't remember exactly why, but suffice it to say, the official price in the United States is 42.22 on the books. And, you know, you got the head of the Dutch National Bank who keeps talking about this. He keeps talking about revaluing gold. In fact, I think I can pull up here really quick. I think, bear with me. He says, let's see, the head of his name is Klaas Knot. And in October of 2022, he is the head governor of Dutch Central Bank. He said the balance sheet of the Dutch Central Bank is solid because, make this bigger so I can actually read it, is solid because we also have gold reserves, and the gold revaluation account is more than 20 billion euros, which we may not count as equity, but it is there. Now, it's interesting to understand that when we talk about the revaluation account, that, you know, why do they give it that name, I guess, first and foremost? Why would they give it the name of a revaluation account if it wasn't something that they noticed? And I think it's option number 4, right? And option number 1 for the Fed would be to inflate, the way all governments have done. And option number 2 would be to default. Option number 3 I focused on for the last 4 years, and that was incite the world to no longer trust the United States, to no longer have a need to use the dollar for oil, to sign an executive order to go green, to stabilize the country, weaponize the dollar in the treasury market, and have everyone dump dollars. There's something called Operation Sandman that people should Google. Over 100 plus countries in theory, and I don't know how true this is or not, but Mike Adams sure thinks it is, and he's a smart guy, that they've all agreed at one point to flip the switch. And it would happen at night is the way that it's written down, the night of the switch, they call it, where in unison, they will all dump US dollars in treasuries. Now, if all of a sudden Project Enbridge and the unit token get ratified and it comes out in October, I mean, it is not beyond the scope of my imagination to see that come to fruition. The slowly, little by little by little by little divestiture of dollars and treasuries, which we have seen, is positioning. And the accumulation of commodities like gold, which has doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury for 25 years with no counterparty risk. It's happening. So all of these countries, and we're supposed to be, the United Kingdom is now going to be the biggest purchaser of our treasuries, along with Ireland and the Cayman Islands. I got some oceanfront real estate to sell you in Minneapolis if you believe that that really is legit. It's not legit. I mean, Jim Willie says they're paying them under the table. I don't care what it is. One broke nation buying the debt of another broke nation is just not really smart. And it shouldn't be even considered an asset. But it is, and it won't be the way things are going. It looks like the way that if indeed the unit comes about and you don't need to hold treasuries because gold is outperforming it with no counterparty risk and will be the primary component of a new settlement currency, you don't need to hold dollars either that are being inflated away by $100,000 a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's $1 trillion every 100 days. $100 grand a second is being pissed away and bankrupting your grandchildren and my children and all of these people that are working their tail off right now only to be indebted by fiscal irresponsibility. So the dollar's days are numbered ultimately, as are the treasury. I do believe that. So as we talk about the gold revaluation account, to me, that's option number 4. You just revalue the price of gold as high as it possibly can go, legitimately, and write off your debt. Now, even in the case of the U.S., it's pretty bad because every $4,000 increase in the price of gold, if we have 261 million ounces, would result in $1 trillion that could go free and clear into the treasury account, the TGA. So you raise it to $20,000, that only gives you $5 trillion free and clear to go into the treasury. And we're still, you know, we have 35 trillion in debt and 150 trillion in unfunded liabilities. So it's not a magic pill, but it certainly helps. Anyways, getting back to your point, Trump spoke at the Bitcoin meeting. And right after he spoke at the Bitcoin meeting, there was a lady who spoke, and her name, Senator Cynthia Lummis was her name. And Cynthia Lummis proposed funding the strategic Bitcoin reserve by partially revaluing the Federal Reserve's gold. And she wrote a bill to do this. And she's talking, so now you got the West talking about it. She says that Treasury Secretary with no congressional approval needed, that would be our friend Janet, could instruct the Fed Chair Jerome to revalue U.S. official gold, which mechanically creates a deposit into the U.S. Treasury General Account, TGA, free and clear. The Treasury can spend as it sees fit. And Senator Lummis's proposal is revaluing the gold and taking some of that excess money and using it to buy Bitcoin for a strategic Bitcoin account. The point I want to get across is they know it's there. Now, the question is our gold really there? Is the 261 million ounces really there? Hasn't been audited for a very long time, but I find it ironic that they call it the gold revaluation account. It's almost too ironic to not be applied. Again, too stupid to be stupid. I don't know. It just seems like they have that in their back pocket. So I think that's something to watch. Look, when you see China raise the price of silver by $4, that's not revaluation, but it just goes to show that the real price is what someone will pay for it. So all of these Western countries, and all of these, including China, they're all accumulated massive amounts of debt, and they're all buying gold. So why not revalue it? It gets your balance sheet in order, and now gold goes way up here. It's used to peg to a new system. It never comes back down. And you know who used to say that? God rest his soul, Jim Sinclair. He said gold will go to a level that no one would ever expect. It will be pegged to a new system and it will never come back down. And, maybe he will be right, be proven right. I think he underestimated. I think his number was 10,000. James Rickards is saying 27,000. Who knows how high it will go? But I do believe you can only pee in the punch bowl so long before everyone says, I'm done drinking that. And you need to do something to inspire confidence, and that is gold and blockchain technology. That is coming. That's why all of these banks are buying gold and repatriating it, central banks. That's why you're seeing them go to great lengths to blur and to use the suppression against us to massively accumulate and de-dollarize until something like Operation Sandman happens, where you wake up on a Monday morning, just like we did this last Monday, to see the Nikkei get hammered. Instead, it will be the dollar in the Treasury market that open limit down immediately. So hope it doesn't happen, but I'd bet pretty strongly that it does. Some form, something like that.